How are you getting on? Welcome to the Shebeen, everybody. Sunday night. We've had a few weeks off, but we're back with a vengeance. Lauren, how are you?
We're back with a bang. I'm great. Yes, we had a little bit of a break for a few weeks for whiskey buses, subsequent recovery of whiskey buses, a wee bit of sickness in there, but we're back. We've got a whiskey in hand.
The return to fighting form, that lag is getting longer and longer as I get older and older. That the bounce back is less of a bounce and more of a long walk back.
More of it, yeah, exactly. It's a long winding road. But bit like the roads to Clonakilty's barley fields and warehouses. That's our recovery path.
All in a good cause. So we're back after a fantastic week around Ireland with our Whiskey Bus crew. We have lots of stories to share and highlights that we'll share with you tonight on that. We're going to virtually visit Killarney tonight. Many of you have been to Ireland's tourist capital, are familiar with Killarney, and many more of you have asked questions about where you should go when you go to Killarney. So we're going to answer those questions tonight. We're going to tell you all of the whiskey spots and stops and sips that you should be enjoying when you go down to the Kingdom of Kerry. So wherever you're joining us from, we'd love to know what you're drinking, what's in your glass. Don't tell us if it's anything American or Scottish now. We don't really care about that. But if it's Irish, let us know. If it's not, stay quiet.
What are you drinking tonight, Barry? What's in your glass?
Okay, so I have gathered a selection of Killarney related whiskies tonight. I have started with the new Two Stacks 20-year-old single grain that was released to celebrate 20 years of carry out off license with John Fleming and his family for the two off licenses in Killarney. So I've started with that. I'll talk more about that in a bit. I've also gathered two of Maurice O'Connell's whiskies, Liberator Storehouse Special Malt and Moscatel. We will be talking about Lakeview Estate and the Liberator in a bit, and also the single farm estate, or the single estate inaugural release of the single of Lakeview's own barley distilled into a whiskey. So I've got those three Killarney inspired whiskies on standby tonight. Talking earlier, I have all the Killarney whiskies, and it seems like you've got all the Whiskey Bus whiskies.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, you're looking after the Killarney side of things. I'm looking after the Whiskey Bus. So currently in my glass is our very own Whiskey Bus bottling from Dahi, W.D. O'Connell. First ever Whiskey Bus exclusive bottling, of which there are only 48 bottles in the world. I've got a Clonakilty port cask lined up as well, and also a Method of Madness Gariana, one of my favorites, as you know. So yeah, three in front of me.
Good choices, good selections there, good range. That Whiskey Bus bottling from Dahi, we had a good result with it today.
We did indeed, yes. So Irish Whiskey Auctions, their monthly auction finished today at 7 o'clock Irish time. And I believe our Whiskey Bus bottling was finished at €350, which is fantastic. Full proceeds of that bottle going to Cork Penny Dinners, which are a fantastic charity based in Cork who provide over 2,000 meals to those in need in Cork every week, which is amazing. And then privately as well, we also had our own little auction with our recent whiskey bussers in a group for the Middleton bottling as well, which raised a phenomenal $750. Again, proceeds going to Cork Penny Dinner. So Lisa and Troy, massive thanks to you for your generosity. Congratulations if you're watching.
Great results, and a nice tradition to begin that our Whiskey Bus will generate some funds for charity at the same time. I think we're all in agreement of our fortune to be part of this community and to be able to visit such amazing brands and distilleries as we have. But if we can tie it all back to charity, I think it's a tradition I think we should keep going anyway from this one out.
Absolutely. I think it's fantastic. And, fair play to Dahi and to the folks at Middleton for, allowing that to happen as well and giving us a spare bottle for charity. So much appreciated. Great cause.
We're going to talk all about some great highlights from the Whiskey Bus a little bit later on. Before we do that, we've got folks joining us from all over the world, from Cork to California, Arizona, Florida, Texas, Ohio. Where else have we got? Nevada, Wisconsin. It's all happening. New York, upstate New York, Los Angeles, Killarney, Lakeview House and Estate.
I was going to say, I think Sir Morris may also be in the comment section tonight there as well.
That's it. Kristen says that's like what, €3,000 just on the whiskey bus. That would be a no. I hope you're not a maths teacher now by profession, Kristen. It's about €1,000. I think.
Yeah.
This is about €1,100 maybe.
Yeah.
Near enough to 3,000. Kristen, if you'd like to round it up, we'll happily round that up on your behalf.
Kristen, you and Amanda might be able to team together still to contribute and make up the difference.
Missouri in the house as well. Kristen said also with the auction on the boat. That's true. We did have an auction. That's right. Which we're very actually. So it's more than 3,000 raised. Thank you, Kristen, for reminding us. Thank you to our very generous benefactors who can name themselves if they'd like on the boat, who allowed us to raise $2,000 on the boat for another charity bottling, a 0 of 0 bottling that we can't talk about.
Amazing.
Because it hasn't been released yet. Yeah, amazing.
That auction must have slipped our minds after several pours of whiskey and drinking the bar drive Guinness. Perhaps that's why it slipped our minds there for a second. We'll say no more.
We've got plenty of photographs to be able to share once that release eventually does make it to the market. So we'll talk about that then. But thank you to everybody who participated, whether you were successful or not in our auctions. Just thanks for driving up the price and for ensuring that as much money as possible goes to Cork Penny Dinners. So let's crack on with some new releases to talk about that have happened in our absence that we just want to catch up on. Just a few of them. And if we've missed any, let us know if there's whiskies that we should talk about as well. The first is this out of nowhere release that surprised quite a few of us, which was 2 new whiskies released by Bushmills announced in the past 10 days, codenamed the World Wood Malts. And it is a 15-year-old Bushmills. I've never seen a 15-year-old Bushmills before. I think this might be a first. Yep. Lauren, you'd know better than I would on that front. But it is, 16 and 12, but no 15s.
That's right.
So we have a 15-year-old single malt and a 21-year-old single malt. And what's interesting about these is that they are not released at 40% ABV, which is good news for those who love a little bit of a higher ABV. They are released at 46, I believe. Let me put up the details here.
46, yeah.
46, yeah. 46% ABV. And the pricing on those, the 15-year-old single malt is retailing for, I had it here in front of me, $90.
I was going to say, I thought it was around 85, 90, yeah. Just fairly reasonable for a 15-year-old malt.
$90, yeah. And the 21-year-old is retailing for $265. Now, what's interesting is we talk about the World Wood. So the 15-year-old does the traditional maturation of bourbon and, actually the 15-year-old single malt is a combination of ex-bourbon, first fill, and second fill American oak casks. And then is there a finish on that? No, that's an all-American maturation. But the 21-year-old is interesting in that it is 18 years in bourbon and Oloroso sherry, and then a final 3 years in a first fill Marsala wine cask, which I really want to try that one. Now, the downside to these whiskies being released is that they're only released in Dublin Airport on the island of Ireland, and the only other place you can get them are airports in Asia Pacific region. So get cashing in your air miles if you want to pick these up.
Yeah, the 21 out of those 2 intrigues me the most, definitely. Especially if I'm thinking about the 1995 Marsala Causeway that was an Ireland exclusive there a couple of years ago. I love that whiskey. So I'd imagine that would be right up my street, the 21 year.
And not available in the US, Bob, just Ireland and Asia Pacific. So you just missed out, probably by a couple of weeks from the whiskey bus. Next up, which big excitement on this one when the announcement came out last week, Powers John's Lane releasing a cask strength version of their 12-year-old single pot still. Powers John Lane, 12 years since they launched, that expression became an instant favourite. Very bourbon barrel forward, distillate forwards, tiny little percentage of sherry casks, but kind of a hark back to the distillates of old, perhaps. A hat tip to the old John's Lane distillery and cask strength version finally on the market. And I would say a relatively reasonable €90, in line approximately with the 12-year-old Redbreast cask strength. So that might have played some role in the kind of the pricing strategy there. It's officially available on October 2nd in Ireland, all over Ireland, and in travel retail. And don't think there's any plans for the US right now, but I know lots of you have ways to get hold of things in Ireland. You're all very creative and Al Capone-like. And there is a earlier version of this released by the Palace Bar last week, which retails for €130. And that is a Palace Bar version, which is basically the same whiskey, same liquid, slightly different label, Palace Bar written on the label, a little hang tag on the neck, individually numbered bottles, 1 out of 200, and I think a little box to go with it as well. And those are available directly from the Palace Bar, I think, at the moment, for those who are interested in that one.
Was there limited numbers on those Powers bottles in the Palace Bar? I'm not sure. I think there was
200.
Yeah.
200, yeah. And I think quite a few will be kept back for serving behind the bar. Yeah. And I think I heard the number 160 being released or 170 being released to the public. The whiskey I'm drinking right now is this very reasonably priced for its age compared to what we're seeing out there at the moment. Two Stacks collaboration with Carry Out Off License in Killarney have released a 20-year-old single grain. This is the oldest single grain I've ever tried. It's ex-Cooley Distillery, who have long been kind of the kings of single grain in Ireland. We released a 12-year-old single grain, the Crack, our first ever club whiskey, and that DNA shines through. That marshmallowy, popcorny notes shine through. This one is finished in a pear brandy cask, so you've got some really ripe pear notes coming through, kind of green. How to describe them? Kind of green orchard fruit notes. There is a crispiness to this one, and it's a very, very well balanced whiskey at its ABV, 58.5% ABV. I haven't added any water to this. 58.5, so one of only 282 bottles, but it's available directly from Carry Out Off License. But it's not often we get a 20-year-old whiskey for €140 in Ireland these days. I think those days are almost behind us.
I was about to say it's a fantastic price for that age of a whiskey. Absolutely. No, I'm very intrigued by that one. I think I'll order myself a bottle. Still on the website.
We'll get you a sample. Oh no, order. Go on ahead.
Coast to coast transport for one sample.
Troy said sold out. Tell us which one is sold out, Troy. There, we have so many on the go here.
I think he meant the John's Lane cask strength there.
Palace Bar one, okay.
Yeah.
And the regular permanent edition of John's Lane is going to be available October 2nd, and it'll be released every year in a batch, a bit like you've seen Redbreast cask strength, Redbreast 27, Blue Spot. So they're batch release, so they might vary slightly in ABV and in cask makeup. And the whiskey enthusiasts amongst you will want to compare them all and claim that one is far superior to the other, and you never want to drink the other one again. So they'll come out every year, which is great. There's been a few other Two Stacks releases that have sold out instantly. What's the one? Pump Up the Jam. Is it the raspberry? The raspberry brandy sold out, I believe, in a few minutes online. I don't have details of that here, but that sold out so quickly. It didn't even give us time to put up a slide.
Couldn't even get a photograph of it. It was gone.
Even the slide sold out. So no sooner do we have it up there, somebody bought the slide.
Vanished.
That's kind of highlights the whiskey releases. But I will say this, every 2 weeks you're going to see whiskies released between now and Christmas, I promise you, because I know of maybe a dozen whiskies that are coming. There's some massive releases coming between now and Christmas. There's some wallet breakers. There are some affordable whiskies. There's some new distilleries coming out with some of their own liquid for the first time, which is exciting. So we're going to see the gamut. We're going to see 3-year-old whiskies, and we're going to see a lot older whiskies as well. So it's exciting. And I think within the next few days, you'll see the first of those. So stay tuned. We will announce those as we have information. And then we'll share information on the Shebeen every Sunday as well. Quick notes on our Stories and Sips Whiskey Club. We had a great tasting this week with Ned Gahan, head distiller at Waterford Distillery. The replay of that is up on our website. It was a revelation to me that night. I enjoyed Waterford whiskies, have enjoyed Waterford whiskies for quite a while, but leaving them for 6 or 8 months and then coming back to them and then trying them side by side and having Ned explain the origin of them and the journey really, really helped things click together for me. And I know so many of you who are on that call who had never tasted Waterford before, the light bulbs went off and you could see the journey and you could see the vision. Great tasting. The replay is available on our website. We have another tasting coming up in October, a blind tasting. We're getting the details of that ready at the moment. We hope to be able to release the shipping link for you shortly to be able to purchase your tasting kit. 4, maybe 5 whiskies in that tasting kit heading your way to taste blindly and try and guess what the whiskies are. And on Tuesday, I'm heading to a whiskey company to sample 2 whiskies for potential release for us. And we'll keep you posted on that. I'll share the journey as I go there because I'm not going to keep it a secret. I'm going to go there and talk about what we're tasting and fill you in on the thoughts and keep you posted. So 2, maybe 3 more whiskies on the way between now and the end of the year as well. And we will have a Whiskey Club Meet the Maker event where you'll get to meet the people behind the whiskey every single month. We'll have one in September, one in October, one in November, one in December. So every single month you'll have one of those. And in 2024, every single month, there'll either be a whiskey release or a tasting kit. So not bad going. I think we'll get a lot done in 2024.
I tell you something, the Christmas wish lists are getting longer as these weeks carry on and we host more Shebeens with new releases.
I know, honestly. All right. Okay, Lauren, what's going on next week? What is this very special Shebeen?
So I wonder. So next Sunday is the 17th of September. Hard to believe we'll be halfway through the month already. 17th of September also marks an important date in arguably maybe not so much the Irish calendar, but certainly the calendar in the US. It is halfway to St. Patrick's Day, which, to be honest, we're just taking as an excuse to have a bit of crack, drink a bit of whiskey, and have some fun. But halfway to St. Patrick's Day also means that we are halfway, we're 6 months out from Whiskey Bus 3, which also happens to be taking place over St. Patrick's Day from the 15th to the 22nd of March 2024. Now, many of you will know from previous Shebeens, we spoke about it in the group and so on. Our St. Patrick's Day will look a little bit different to most people's next year, as we will be taking part in a St. Patrick's Day parade in Kilrush in County Kerry with JJ Corey. Louise McGuan, founder, will also be there. And we will be on the back of a truck circling around about approximately 8 to 10 times. all 30 odd of us having a bit of crack and having a few whiskies. So that is really what we're celebrating next Sunday. We will have a few special guests. When I say special guests, Barry's actually one of them because I'm hosting the Shebeen myself, which is also terrifying and exciting at the same time. But we will also have a few musical guests as well. I'm not going to tell you what just yet. I want to keep that a surprise. We might reveal that later in the week, or keep it as a surprise until next Sunday. So it's going to be great crack. We're going to have a bit of fun, talk whiskey buses, talk St. Patrick's Day, drink a few whiskies, and have a bit of crack. Troy, I saw him in the comments if he's still there. He might be being summoned as well. We'll leave it at that.
It's great timing that the Shebeen lands on that day, and I think it's great countdown. Like, it's great for us to start that countdown, 6-month countdown. And it's funny, since the Whiskey Bus 2, we've had a few folks on Whiskey Bus 2 already come back and say, sign us up for Whiskey Bus 3. So we only have not many seats left on Whiskey Bus 3. And I think after next week, there'll be a few more people who fall off the fence conveniently into a Whiskey Bus seat.
I think so too. There was a few came up to us at the end of, well, when we finished the Whiskey Bus a couple of weeks ago. And as you say, Barry, they were on the fence, definitely on the fence. It's like, can I really come back a third time? Yes, you can. Totally different bus, totally different experiences, different part of Ireland. And when can you say you've been part of a St. Patrick's Day, a traditional St. Patrick's Day parade on St. Patrick's Day in the west of Ireland?
It's amazing. It's going to be absolute chaos. And I'm here for it. Like, it's going to be amazing in the best way. It's going to be chaotic, and it's one of those ones where we'll do all the planning we can possibly do, and then something will happen. A tractor will break down, or some child will run out in front of a horse. Who knows what will happen? But it's going to be. First, we're installing handrails on the back of a flatbed truck for guests to hold on.
Don't worry, that was my first task, was to liaise with the JJ Corey team and ensure safety was a priority. We will be absolutely fine. We will be grand.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that next week. I'm excited for it. We'll share some of the itinerary too, I suppose, on Whiskey Bus 3, and talk about what we're going to do. And we still have some surprises there yet to reveal. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being a guest. And you run the show next week. You tell us what you need, and we'll be there.
Absolutely. I might bring you on for a rendition of the Old Triangle. I think it will be a sin not to. When there's music included.
I might have to learn that song. Is that a new tune? Would this be a more recent release?
Yeah, no, I know you held the lyrics on your phone on the boat when we did the cruise a couple of weeks ago, so you might need to perfect the old lyrics.
How dare you? How dare you? They're etched in my eyelids. We'll talk more about great highlights from Whiskey Bus 2, but no harm in mentioning this. Now, before we go on to Killarney, is one of the really fantastic outcomes of Whiskey Bus 2 has been that we are now planning a couple of private whiskey buses for 2 pubs in America who want to repeat what we did on Whiskey Bus 2 for their customers. Like 2 whiskey buses for 2 pubs.
And a few more potential options as well coming to two definitely, a few more potential options. It's amazing. It's fantastic, and it's all partly down to the guests of the whiskey buses as well. You share the content, you share the reels, the photographs, you post them in the group in Fans of America, and people see it and they want to be part of the crack. So when we say that spreading the word and sharing photos really helps spread the word of not just the whiskey bus, but Irish whiskey experiences in general, we mean it, and that's proof of it, and it's brilliant. So yeah, exciting times. Will be, how many whiskey buses? That'll be potentially 5. Crazy.
Potentially 5 whiskey buses next year, potentially, yeah.
Crazy.
For now. Anyway, on we go. Let's go to Killarney virtually. It's a bit late to be getting in the car, but we'll go there virtually tonight to the Kingdom of Kerry. We measure all things in Ireland in terms of how close they are to Cork. It's important to ground yourself. Killarney is about an hour and a half drive from Cork, depends on the weight of your foot, but fairly straight road there to Killarney. A beautiful part of the world, and a part of Ireland, I think, that's very well known to our American friends. It is the tourist capital of Ireland, I would argue, outside of Dublin. I don't know if it's still the case, but certainly when I was in hotel management all those years ago, Killarney was the place that was the town that had more hotel rooms than any other town outside of Dublin, and maybe even more than Dublin. I'm not sure, but it was always the home of some of the most luxurious hotels, great hospitality, and a thriving tourism industry, and has had for many years. Kind of made famous back through songs like Bing Crosby singing songs about Killarney, and it being this kind of really archetypal representation of Hollywood's version of Ireland, those lakes, those rolling hills, the mountains, horses and carts. It's kind of the quiet man version of Ireland, I think, that still lives on for many in America. No harm. It's a beautiful part of the world. So we're going there tonight to talk about what a whiskey drinker can do in Killarney when they visit Ireland, because heaven forbid you'd find yourself in a town and wouldn't know where to go whiskey-wise, and you might be dragged somewhere that's serving rum or Baileys or who knows what, and you might say, well, what about the whiskey though? It's been 3 hours since my last drop. Well, we're here to help solve that for you.
I read, before you start, Barry, just on the back of what you just said, a staggering fact about tourism in Killarney earlier on. So tourism is, of course, the biggest industry without fail in Killarney and that part of the world in general. So tourism brings into the town approximately 410 million euros per year, which is a terrifying number. There's about 1.1, I think, million it was, visitors to Killarney and to the town itself every year, and over 60% of those tourists are international visitors. Amazing. Terrifying number. So it really is 100%. It's really the jewel in the Irish crown, and it's one of the most popular hotspots, as you just said. So
home to Killarney National Park. So we're going to buttress the whiskey with some detoxing slides. So outdoors, indoors, outdoor, we'll kind of give you a bit of both, so that you have a balanced existence in Killarney. Things important. So Killarney National Park, one of the most spectacular parks in Ireland. Actually, Ireland's first national park was created national park back in the 1930s, early 1930s, by an act of the Irish Parliament to do with the donation of Muckross House, which we'll talk about in a little bit, in the grounds of Killarney National Park. But a massive, massive park, 25,000 acres of lake, mountains, waterfalls. I've spent many a great day climbing the Torc, the waterfall, going up to the top of the mountain, going all around the lakes. It's a fantastic spot, whether you want an hour-long hike, whether you want a week-long hike. There's a 200-kilometre walking trail starts out of Killarney as well that can keep you going for a good afternoon as well. So there's a lot going on in the Killarney National Park. Beautiful, beautiful. It is that picturesque vision of Ireland that you think of when you're in the United States. Home to Ross Castle, right there in the banks of Lough Lean, 15th century tower house. You can take a lovely little boat ride out through the lakes, board there. You can have a little private rowing boat take you out on the lake. You can have a larger vessel. You can sail to a whiskey destination like Maurice O'Connell's Lakeview estate from Ross Castle with a prior arrangement as well, also on the banks of Lough Lean. So an absolutely stunning location. The town itself, I think, often overshadows just the spectacular natural beauty of the area. And I'd like to hear more mentioned of it in relation with a trip to Killarney. Although we're going to talk about which high stools you need to be finding in the town, I also think we need to be talking about which high peaks and waterfalls you need to be finding at the same time. But Killarney town itself, I first went there when I was, I think, 18. When I was first went there kind of officially for like overnight as a kind of a big boy. When I was 18, working in a Dare Manor down, a few of us went down to Killarney for a weekend. I'll never forget it. And those were the days when it was a real, like, I had so many friends working in the hotel industry. So you always had a place to stay. There was always a room that they'd give you. A great town, a buzzing town, a lot going on. Yes, a lot of tourist shops aimed at tourists, but an awful lot to see and do and eat and drink there. And we want to talk about drinking responsibly, of course, in the town as well. You can't go to Killarney without visiting the Celtic Whisky Bar and Larder. So it's the first of our whisky stops here in Killarney now that we're talking about tonight. And 20 years ago, the Celtic Whisky Bar was open, 2003. They've been in business 20 years, a long time. Celtic Whisky Bar is the brainchild of Ellie Alpine, owner of Celtic Whisky Shop in Dawson Street in Dublin. Celtic Whisky Auctions, Whisky Live. I would argue one of the foremost flag flyers for the whiskey industry in Ireland. Before anybody was talking about whiskey, Ali was out there telling everybody, a Scotsman no less, telling everybody about Irish whiskey, no less, as if he should be less. But he's been flying the flag for Irish whiskey for a long time now. And the Celtic Whisky Bar and Larder in the heart of Killarney town, one of the largest, if not the largest, selections of Irish whiskey in the country now. We leave the Shelburne and Dick Max and everybody else argue with each other and beat chests over who has the biggest selection. Celtic Whisky claims to have it. You'd be hard pushed to argue with them. I know Shelburne now are up over 500 and they're looking for shelf space, but the Celtic Whisky Bar claims to have more.
Yeah, according to their website and various other sources, I think it's 1,200 whiskies they have. Now, they do say that that is a mixture of Irish, Scotch, American, and kind of other world whiskies, but still, 1,200 is a phenomenal number.
It's unique in that it's one of the places where you can get some very old releases. So going back 40, 50 years more, you can taste most of the Middleton Very Rare collection. You have dream casks that are opened. There's all of the Celtic casks that have been released. There's almost one of each of them, and they're all there. They also do structured tastings and experiences where pairing with cheese, pairing with chocolates, pairing with food, pairing with other whiskies. So there's a lot to experience in the Celtic Whisky Bar. Some very knowledgeable staff in there as well. I often find at whiskey bars, doesn't matter where you go, you can be lucky or you can be unlucky with who you get at the bar when you go there. And if you have any chance to make connections in advance of going to visit a destination whiskey bar to see if the person who knows the stuff about whiskey is there or not. I've been to whiskey bars in Ireland where you'd wonder how that person was put behind the bar in a whiskey bar at all, and you'd feel embarrassed for them because they just didn't have the education or the knowledge about the whiskies they were serving. I don't say that to detract from the Celtic Whisky Bar, far from it, but rather, if you get the right person in any whiskey bar, you'll have a great night. But even if you didn't get the right person, you sit there with the menu and you know what you want, you can work your way through it and you'll have a great night. And I think you can take samples away as well, to the best of my knowledge. They have this, because they do the small little sample kits as well. They have a little tasting club as well. But Celtic Whisky Bar, great spot.
Yeah, they do like virtual whiskey tastings as well. I think that kind of also came off more so the back of the lockdown and COVID, and virtual cocktail classes as well. So there's a wide range of sort of tastings and activities for all sort of tastes there.
So pop into the Celtic Whisky Bar when you're next in Killarney. Now, the next one, I had to laugh. Like, I did spit out a drink when I went to their website earlier today, and this is Charlie Foley's Bar. And the reason is, on the website, it says, book your stay. And I just love a pub that's got a book your stay button. They're not trying to sell you a pint. They want you for weeks. They want you to come and stay for not just a drink. They've made the bed.
I saw that as well, and I was like, are my eyes deceiving me here? And is the book a room more kind of visible on the website than what they do, their story, everything? So, I mean, listen, it's a place to rest your head after a few whiskies and a few pints.
There can be no greater combination than a night of whiskey and a bed in the same place. And some bars don't like you to sleep under the table that you were drinking the whiskies at that same night. In fact, they discourage it. But at Charlie Foley's, once you've already booked your room, you're in.
Frowned upon to sleep under the table. But if you can make your way up the stairs, off the floor, out of the bar, up the stairs and into a bed, it's fine.
So Charlie Foley's is, now it's a bit of a distance from Celtic Whisky Bar. It's 250 feet or all of 1 minute's walk. So if you were to line whiskey bottles top to tail, it'd be about 150 whiskey bottles away from the Celtic Whisky Shop or Whisky Bar. So I think you can make it. So Charlie Foley's, great whiskey selection, great supporters of Irish whiskey, often collaborate with Kerry out off license as well. And if you want your candle to be in a yellow spot bottle, they're your men into Charlie Foley's. It's also the oldest family-run bar in Killarney, and it's been in the Foley family for 126 years, which is fantastic.
That's a great way to measure distances. I'm going to do that from now on. Number of whiskey bottles away. Yeah. This place is 50 whiskey bottles. It's 250 whiskey bottles. That's a great way.
It says nothing about your character or obsession. It's just
nothing. Depends what way the whiskey bottles are positioned as well. Are they upright or are they on their side? On their side's a different story. When you look at like Ryder's Tears bottles versus the New Powers bottles, there's quite a significant difference in size there, you know. Thought about this too much.
Morris and the team said great food at Celtic as well, Celtic Whisky Bar and Larder. which is a great point. It is a bed and breakfast over the bar. Yes, you can sleep there. We're not suggesting that you rock in with a rolled up sleeping bag and having booked your stay and say, right, which booth is mine? In the Wild West. Paul says that Foley's the absolute best place to stay in Killarney.
I'll bear that in mind when I make a trip down. That's a good point about the food being great. I think alongside Celtic Whisky winning, they won Bar of the Year last year at the Icons of Whisky Awards, I believe. They also won Best Chef. One of their chefs won Best Chef as well. So
that's right.
Testament to both food and drink.
During COVID, I was getting Celtic Whisky bar shipments. They, like you mentioned, they were doing the virtual tastings, but it was one of those cases where, during COVID, all hands on deck. It was the chef was sending out the samples. Like the chef was, he was signing the sheets, enjoy the tasting, everyone was like scrambling, to fill whatever job needed to be done.
No, but better restructuring as a direct consequence of the pandemic.
And Paul, who says it's the absolute best place to stay in Killarney, and that's coming from a man who has often slept in a ditch. So there's good recommendations there from Paul. And Kristen enjoyed Killarney glamping when in Killarney as well. Right, so Celtic, honestly now, you wouldn't need to go beyond Celtic Whisky Bar and Charlie Foley's to have all the drink and crack you'd want, the bite to eat, and then the bed as well. You might never see Killarney National Park.
You might not get past you might never find the door out of the bar to get any further than that.
But if you did get out of the door, you should find yourself in the direction of the beautiful Lochleen and Lakeview estate, and we have and to the home of Sir Maurice O'Connell and his lovely wife, and there you'll find the home of the Liberator Irish whiskey. You will find the home of Lakeview Wayward Spirits with Lakeview Single Estate inaugural release, and it's here that Maurice is growing barley on the estate and also maturing whiskey that he has sourced from distilleries like Great Northern Distillery, and is taking advantage of a unique microclimate that Gulf stream that flows down over the south west and south of Ireland, allowing palm trees to grow in Cove and warmer conditions to thrive in Killarney as well. A beautiful part of the world. We happen to have an Irish whiskey experience with Maurice as well, don't we? A chance to go and spend a day sampling from the casks with Maurice, if such a thing should interest you.
Absolutely. If you happen to find yourself in that part of the world, whether for those of you joining us on Whiskey Bus 3 next year, post or pre Whiskey Bus, you could arrive at the estate via boat or private chauffeur, whatever you decide to choose. And yeah, absolutely. Sir Maurice will be your host. He'll take you through the family history. They have a fascinating history of supplying wines and spirits to that particular part of Ireland. You'll get a walk down into the bonded storehouse. Maurice will explain, as Barry just said, the unique microclimate and how that affects the barley growing and the maturation process. And then, of course, enjoy a bit of lunch as well. So one-on-one time with Sir Maurice, fantastic experience we have there.
The Maurice is a great addition to and participant in the world of whiskey, because we all angles being attacked in the world of whiskey. We need distilleries, we need whiskey merchants, we need marketers, we need those who have land that can grow barley that will eventually become the whiskey. And Maurice has this, he fills this lovely gap of having a maturation space, also having the fields where the barley is grown, and he's able to see different aspects of the life cycle of the ingredients of the whiskey. And it's not very many places in Ireland where the whiskey matures feet from where the barley grew, which I think is something quite interesting as well. So a beautiful part of the world, Lakeview Estate. And you'll find when you go to Killarney that all of these things that we're mentioning are within a few minutes of each other. So Killarney is quite small in terms of distance. So everything is accessible, really accessible. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. You're going to reach most of these places we're mentioning here.
Absolutely.
A new addition to the scene in Killarney, just a little bit further out the road in Fossa, is a Massive development. The Killarney Brewing and Distilling Complex, 62,000 square feet of brewing and soon to be whiskey distilling. It's been a few years in the making, an absolutely enormous development. I had the chance to tour it about a year and a half ago with John Fleming from Carry It Off Licenses and see it in its construction. Far from finished it was then, but this is an enormous footprint that is this new breed of distillery that is understanding the importance of experience and multifunctional use. So a space like this can be turned into many things. They're aiming at not just the brewing or beer enthusiasts or whiskey enthusiasts, but they're also targeting conference and convention business with space for up to 200, 250 delegates to join. They've got multiple floors. They've got private bar space that looks out over the Gap of Dunlow. It's maybe the distillery with the best view from it in Ireland. They've got a gin school inside the distillery. The amount of money that has been spent on this distillery is staggering. The fit out is just spectacular. And I'm looking forward to getting back down there once whiskey distilling starts up officially and spending a bit of time there. But it is an unbelievable development. It is both Irish, the Killarney Brewing themselves have been in the town for many, many years. They were located in the town centre. They have relocated now out to this new footprint. And look, every distillery is a brewery with some copper pot stills attached to it in its simplest form. And so they've been honing their brewing skills for quite a while. And now with the addition of distilling, looking forward to seeing what they come up with there. And what a spot. I thought might have had a picture. Oh, maybe it's up on my next one here.
That's, I think, just on your point there, Barry, about kind of creating these kind of multi-use spaces. I think that's a massive advantage that new distilleries and brand homes have, is that, when you look at older distilleries, the tours have been built around the distillery and it has to very much fit the distillery and steps and where things are laid out. Whereas with newer distilleries, you can afford to build the distillery around the concept of having a tour, having conferences and things like that. So it's a massive advantage for them. I see the Mayor of Killarney has joined us in the comments there.
Well, hold on a second now. I called him the Mayor earlier. You had a different name for him.
I called him the Pope. I upgraded him. I think he deserves the Pope.
Distilling started in the new site 2 weeks ago. That's great to hear. Good news. It's getting harder and harder to keep up. There was a time 3 or 4 years ago where if a still was turned on in Ireland, everybody knew about it. Now there's so many distilleries in various stages of construction, and some say we don't want to tell anybody what we're doing for a while, so they've not even announced that they're distilling. Others are bringing in the brass bands and the bagpipes. So that's good to hear. 2 weeks ago, distilling started.
I think I read on their website as well that they plan to release the whiskey in 2028. So makes sense then.
Tyrone wants to know what's the best way to get to Killarney from Dublin. I always recommend the best thing to do in Ireland is to rent a car. Public transport is not just unreliable, it's infrequent and it's not point to point as much as it could be. Now, you can get a bus from Dublin to Killarney, no problem at all, but it'll take you about 6 hours. You can get a bus from Shannon to Killarney, 2.5, maybe 3 hours. But the best way to do is just drive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Now, speaking of mayors and popes, so you've visited a few distilleries, you've visited the national parks, you've slept under a table or in a bed at Foley's, and then it's time to buy a drop of whiskey. You could buy your whiskey from these two men here, who are actually the same man in two separate photographs.
Different character unlocked there.
There are 2 off licenses, but only one man, and that is Mayor Pope Esquire John Fleming. And what goes on in the world of alcohol or Killarney that doesn't involve John is nothing that we want to know about. So he's a great man for selling whiskey, a great supporter of whiskey over the past 20 years. Congratulations to John and the team for just winning 2 awards at the Carry Out Off License National Awards, Best Whiskey Store and Best Spirit Store, if I remember the photograph correctly. Let me check. here.
Fantastic.
Great news altogether. He'll type it in there now before I get to it.
Oh, sorry. Paul just said in the comments that I often see two men myself. Well, now
best whiskey store, best spirit store. Yeah,
that sounds like a problem. That's fantastic.
John.
Yeah.
So what's been so John has silently led this. I wouldn't say silently, vocally led the whiskey revolution. Although he was dragged kicking and screaming onto the World Wide Web only last year, so everything was done in the store, old school, shaking of the hands, seeing the white of one another's eyes, deals done. Cash money changed hands, horses traded, but now he's on the web as well. You won't go into one of the carryouts without leaving with more than you thought you were supposed to come out with. Our American friends will know this phenomenon as the Target phenomenon. You go into Target for a bunch of bananas, you come out with a television and a bath. So the carryout is no different. You better leave your checkbook at home because you'll end up spending money in there. They have a great selection of whiskies, and they have some of their own single casks that they've released over the years. So not every off license has the audience or the ability or the marketing strength to be able to bring out a single cask and sell it. But John has been a great supporter of some of the early distilleries and brands in Ireland, collaborating with them over the years. For example, a great 14-year-old Dunvilles, which I have on my shelf, and I had no intention of buying it when I went into John. And John managed to sell me that 14-year-old.
You fell victim to the very cause you were just explaining there.
Yeah, I only speak from experience, you see. So I'm happy to have acquired it, but I had no intention of buying it. Anyway, I came out with that. There's also, and he still has a Powers single cask, which is a 14-year-old single cask, which was the first and the last ever Powers single cask in Kerry. And John still has a few of those in stock. The Dunvilles, I think, is gone, but he'll tell us anyway in the comments if it is or it isn't. Also, some interesting releases. For example, 2 Dingle releases, part 1 and part 2. So great supporter of Dingle from their early days. So Dingle only 45 minutes out the road. And they currently, their most recent release before the 2 Stacks single grain was a W.D. O'Connell collaboration for their 20th anniversary as well, which is single malt finished in a Western Herd beer barrel as well, stout barrel. So John, great flag flyer. So if you want to buy whiskey before leaving Killarney, stop into John. He'll have some exclusives that you can't get anywhere else.
And he'll empty your pockets at the same time.
I mean, you'll be glad you bought the things. You just won't have had any intention of doing it. And everyone will have been smiling along the way. You'll be smiling. John will be smiling. Hands will be shaking. Everyone will be happy, you know.
Before you know it, you'll be out with 6 bottles of whiskey in your hands. Didn't even see it happening. Don't remember bringing the card out.
And you're coming out going, I had a shirt on when I went in there. Where did that go?
Where's my shoes?
No better man. Fair play to John. Whiskey Dell says he was in there over the summer, walked out nearly 500 euros lighter. Now, I hope he got whiskey in exchange for that.
As long as there's whiskey that leaves with you, everything is fine.
That's all that matters. So go and support John, great independent business owner down there, flying the flag for Irish whiskey. Now, if you have had a great night out in Celtic Whiskey Bar and Charlie Foley's, and you've gone to John, you picked up some whiskey, you've spent a day with Morris in Lochlean, in Lakeview Estate, you might want a little bit of history. And this will interest our American friends as well, because Muckross House in the grounds of Killarney National Park has an American connection. And I had it pulled up here earlier. Where is my notes? So Muckross House is a Victorian era home, and it dates all the way back to the 1700s, which is pre-Victorian, isn't it? But it is responsible for the creation of Killarney National Park because, and here's how that happened, the Lord Ardelon of the Guinness family was the owner of it in the late 1800s, early 1900s. He sold it to the Bowers Byrne family of California in 1910. They presented it as a wedding present. Wait for it. Everyone should give a house as a wedding present to their daughter, Maud, and her husband, Arthur Vincent, when they got married. And the house became home to Maud and her husband. And during the years between 1911 and 1932, they spent over £110,000 on improvements to the estate. In 1915, there was a sunken garden installed. A rock garden was developed. But Maud sadly died of pneumonia in New York in February 1929 on her way to visit her parents in California from Killarney. And her husband and children continued to live at Muckross in Killarney until 1932, at which point they were, I suppose, too sad and they wanted to leave this house, which maybe had too many memories of his dear wife. And so Mr. Vincent, together with his parents-in-law, donated the house and gardens to the Irish nation. Now, this was a massive donation, and there was no provision in law for what to do with such a thing. Like, how does the government manage this, and how would it be administered, and what are the responsibilities of the government in taking possession of this? And so it required the creation of a bill, which was put before the Irish Parliament in 1932, which took effect on December 31st. And under that act, the Commissioners of Public Works agreed to maintain and manage the park as a national park for the purpose of the recreation and enjoyment of the public. So in the donation of the home, it created Ireland's first national park. Now, it's been expanded many times over the last 70 or 80 years, but what an amazing gift. And it was all thanks to an American family. So a little tidbit there to tide you over if you want a few stories to go with your sips. All right.
It's almost like you planned that.
Isn't it?
Isn't it?
Now, where are you going to stay when you go to Killarney? Well, you've got no shortage of opportunity or options when you go to Killarney. We're going to start at the top, straight to the 5-star, to Europe, right on the banks of the lakes of Killarney. And if I didn't tell you that was in Killarney, you might tell me that's Geneva or it's Lake Como. But you wouldn't say, oh, it's the Lakes of Killarney. First of all, we don't always get that sun, but Europe is my first memory of a luxury hotel is the Europe. And I was a child. My parents brought us maybe on a day out to Killarney, and there was a stop off in the Europe, and there was a couple of Irish coffees for themselves. And me and my sister probably just ran around the grounds or the carpet, the thick, luxurious carpeted floors. But I can almost smell the hotel in the sense of your memory is tied very closely to smell. And I can, if I smelled that smell again, I'd know instantly that's the Europe. So a beautiful 5-star hotel on the banks of the lakes of Killarney. That's where you're going to stay, and you're going to get, and you're only feet away from Lakeview Estate, right in the banks of Lough Neagh.
If I could wake up to that view every morning of my life, the world would be a better place.
Lauren, make the world a better place, please. Do it.
So I'll just move in, just set up a steak in a room.
Now, if you don't want to be 5 minutes outside the town, you want to be 5 feet from the town, you're going to stay in the Killarney Plaza, and right in the heart of Killarney. Fantastic hotel, big into their whiskey. Also do visits to Lakeview Estate with Morris and the team there. And a great stock selection of whiskies, and they know their stuff behind the bar. So stay in the Killarney Plaza, stay in the Europe. If you're wanting to go a little bit outside of the town, you could also go and stay in the beautiful Ardnashida, which is a small boutique little country estate near Killarney. I suppose it's about a 20-minute drive or half-hour drive outside of Killarney if you wanted to go outside, but has won many awards as one of the best small country hotels in the world. So check out Shebeen as well. Beautiful, beautiful hotel. That is my summary of Killarney. I think we've hit all the hot spots. What have we missed? I mean, we didn't mention glamping, but Kristen mentioned that. Where else?
Maybe Kristen throw into the comments the name of the glamping spot for our benefit and for others as well.
Right, I'm going to change whiskeys. I'm moving on to the Liberator.
Lovely.
In honor of the Liberator. This is the malt and muscatel finish. And this is a storehouse special. So these are small releases, cask strength, 56%. There were 400 bottles of this malt and muscatel finish.
Gorgeous. Love a muscatel finish. I have moved on to Method of Madness Gariana, which is my favourite Method of Madness. I think it's yours as well. Did you say?
Yeah, 100%. The whiskies. So Gariana is a great example of distillate that has been distilled in the micro distillery. So most of the Method of Madness to date have not been distilled in the micro distillery. I think there's been 3 of them that have been released now that are. And the Gariana, they have perfectly paired that distillate with a perfect maturation time. Like it is stunning.
Yeah, it's 100%. I think it's the best Method of Madness, but also best Method of Madness for the price as well. It's just gorgeous. It's so meaty. It's smoky. It's like barbecue. Gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. Love it.
And stay tuned for there may be some Method of Madness releases in the future. Who knows? Who knows? Stay tuned.
Yeah, I heard something about that while we were there. Maybe tasted it. Can't remember.
This malt and muscatel, if you do find it, whether it's on secondary sites, auction sites, or you happen to come across it through samples, etc., you'll be in for luck. It is this like green grape nose. I think of like ice wine. I think of pears. I think of a little bit of green apple as well. Stunning nose to it.
Beautiful. We both just took a sip at the same time there. That was bad timing.
Nobody was talking. People just watching us drinking. Imagine. Why do people tune in at all? Honestly. Oh, that's a great whiskey. That is syrupy. There's a syrupy, yet light sweetness up the front before you get that lovely like a peppery spice. Fantastic whiskey at 56%.
Morris has just rightly said in the comments there, Barry, that Carry Out have the full Liberator range, which is great to know.
There you go. And folks, if you want some whiskies from Carry Out, who I don't think through their website ship internationally, just give John a call. Give the Carry Out a call and tell them who you are. You're in America. You want to get hold of some of the Morris's whiskies, or you want to get some of their single casks. And I'm going to guess that things could be arranged. I'm going to guess that a horse could be exchanged for something.
A few strings could be pulled.
Okay, so Lauren, with that, we're going to move on from. We should also take votes on the next city that we should cover in the future.
Yes.
We have so far done Belfast, Dublin,
Cork. Did we do? No, we didn't do Dublin. No. So
there we go. John shipped to Anthony in Irish Whiskey Auctions. We didn't want to say it out loud. We didn't want to say the quiet bit out loud, but seeing as you said it, that's all right.
He's done it for us. Thanks, John. So we've done Belfast was the first one. Then a few weeks later we did Cork. We've now done Killarney. Where will we do next?
Galway,
yeah. Galway, Dublin.
Galway, maybe. Galway be my vote, but we'll see if anybody wants to recommend a city.
Limerick have a few whiskey pots. Sligo as well. Thomas Connolly and Sligo.
We did Sligo. I did Sligo without you before your time.
That's right.
Before your time. You were only a wee gosser.
A wee viewer.
Galway, says John. Yeah, Johnny says, can I tell John Fleming I'm a good friend of Barry? That'll cost you more. I'd say.
Dingle's go Kilkenny. Martin, I actually did say Kilkenny, Barry. I definitely said that to you this week. We should do Kilkenny.
I mean, we've got one vote for every city here, so we might have to. We work through them all. Galway, Dingle, Limerick, Kilkenny. There's 4 there you could cover.
Or we could also do a poll in the group at some stage this week. There, Kilkenny. There you are, John. The mayor / Pope of Killarney has spoken and said Kilkenny, so we're doing Kilkenny.
Isn't it nice that we're taking these nice people's time to just plan out future events? We're like, what should we do there now? Should we like a team meeting? Is they have to watch this team meeting when they come here for Irish whiskey? Like,
Why don't we live stream the next meeting between
can
me
you
and you
imagine?
and Anthony?
Can you imagine? I mean, it'd be like watching paint dry. Two flies walk up a wall.
Stop. Yes, seems to be Killarney.
We will have to put, and it's on our list, a whiskey bus together for the Southwest, where like I think there's a Cork Kerry whiskey bus through Cork in there as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like you could have a fantastic Cork Kerry whiskey bus.
Without fail. I mean, even like Dingle, Killarney, Cork, serious stops in there, and a lot of whiskey to be enjoyed as well. Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to give you back the old screen.
Absolutely. I don't know if you can make us bigger, can you? Oh, we're on the wrong slide here. Apologies, folks. You're usually good at balancing. There we are. That's fine. That's
Should
better.
we be smaller?
No, we're usually this size. I think you're all good. Well, we can be whatever works. Depends if people want to see the slides or our faces more. There's another poll.
What do you think? It won't be our faces. So we had what an amazing week we had. Now we're not going to go through every single day and every single thing we did in the whiskey bus, but
no, don't worry. We're just putting these photographs up as a way of making you all feel a little bit nostalgic for those of you who are on the whiskey bus and potentially enticed.
9 a.m. on Saturday we started here. 9:10 we went over there.
We ate breakfast at 7:30 a.m. on Monday morning before heading to Waterford. No, we're putting them up for purposes of reference, making those of you who were with us feel a little bit nostalgic, and maybe bring some of you who are debating future whiskey buses off the fence. Kristen just said it feels like a year ago. It does feel like a long time ago, even though we started 3 weeks ago. No, 3.
Yeah. 3.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's quite hard to put it into words and to even break down each day. And when you talk about this was a highlight, that was a highlight, because I think each day in itself had its own highlight, and each day was special within itself as well, depending on the brand, the people, the experiences that were possible at said brand home, said distillery. It was just amazing, and I think every single day offered up something special. And I think at the end of each day, we all kind of looked at each other and thought, how do we top this? And then somehow highlights kept coming, and it was just a phenomenal week. If you could summarize it, Barry, in 3 words, what do you think you would summarize it in?
One of the big takeaways for me was seeing the impact that the whiskey bus guests themselves had on the smaller independent whiskey companies that we visited, who were, I would even argue, ill-equipped, ill-prepared for the barrage of purchase requests for their whiskies. And I remember when we left W.D. O'Connell in Waterford heading towards Cork, remarking to the whiskey bus group, saying how much of an impact I could see that visit had when everyone lined up to buy whiskies from Dahi. Nobody was pressured into it. Nobody was told you have to buy anything. It was just more, there's things here that if you want them, you won't get them anywhere else. And the line went around the warehouse. And that really resonated with me, because I still recall the first conversation I had with Anthony after our first ever lock-in, talking about this, and how whatever we did, it would have to be a win-win-win-win-win. Nobody could lose. Everyone would have to win. And it was great to see that the smaller independent brands could have a whole month changed for them because of one visit. That to me was, that's way more than 3 words, but That was the big takeaway for me, was just seeing the impact that excited, curious, supportive whiskey fans can do to a small independent business in the course of a day. Can change the trajectory of that month. It can mean reinvestment in the business. For some, it can mean putting food on the table. And the big brands, it'll be a drop in the ocean to see something coming into their stores. But for a small independent operator, it could be business changing, and that was amazing.
Absolutely, and I think we said that on the bus as well, as you just said, Barry. 37 people probably changed the projections for the last quarter of the year for a brand, and that's just unbelievable. And I think Dahi was overwhelmed in the best way possible by the kind of the bottles that were purchased that day, and it really, I think it touched a lot of people as well, that that they could make such a difference to people, and we're very lucky as well that we have those connections and those friendships that we're able to do that and help smaller brands and really make a difference to them. It was phenomenal, and just the look on everyone's faces when we put everyone to work. Little did they know that same bottle was the Whiskey Bus bottling. Which is great. You
were sharing earlier, like one of your highlights was on that second day. We had a surprise audience.
We did. You can't mention the Sunday at Teeling without talking about John Teeling himself. I mean, I think there are very few people who I've met throughout my time in the Irish whiskey industry who have the ability to just captivate a room, and you don't have to structure a tasting with them, a conversation with them. You just place them in front of a room, you give them a prompt, and off they go. And that's exactly what John Teeling did. We just sat him in front of everyone, audience-led Q&A, and off he went. And I was just captivated by him and everything he said. He's so funny as well. I think without even trying to be sometimes, he's so honest, he's so transparent. And it was certainly a highlight for me. And God bless him, the man, what age he is, standing at the end of the day, signing every single bottle that was purchased from that gift shop with a smile on his face. And he stood for, I would say, a good 45 minutes after we were due to leave Teeling, just talking to people. And he was just amazing. 100% highlight for me, for sure.
That was a big highlight. It's not every day you get a private audience with John Teeling, which was just very special and unexpected. A little surprise that we threw in there and we didn't announce. Lauren, can you turn down your speakers again if you don't mind? Get a lot of feedback. It's a bit loud there.
Of course.
Give us some of your other highlights of the Whiskey Bus.
I would say another highlight. Well, if we move forward, when we arrived in Cove, the bag that everyone thought all week was just Barry's regular, normal, well-functioning bag. Actually turned out to have an aluminium foil pouch on the inside, which he filled with Jameson 12 year and produced, edging on the verge of being illegal, on the pier of Cove, to give everyone a little drop of whiskey out of the bag when we landed in Cove. And I thought as well, it was so nice to hear that from you, your hometown, a little bit of history there. You started your career in the hospitality industry right across from where we were standing, and it was kind of a full kind of sort of 180 moment for you as well. And then you produced a whiskey for everyone, and we cheers to Cove. And when we finally entered Cork and left not Cork,
that was fun, all right. That was great in Cove. Like, just I remember last year on our first whiskey bus sitting beside Anthony as the bus rolled into Dundalk, and Anthony was proud of being able to bring a bus full of people to his hometown. And I felt the same in Cove, just the chance to bring, I've shared stories ad nauseum about Cove and people are sick of hearing about them, but it was nice to bring people there and for us to all have pints, and nobody had made any plans whatsoever to do anything in Cove except have a pint have a drink, and maybe that's all that was needed.
Now, I will defend Cheryl. She did book a genealogy
That's true.
appointment. There was
That's true.
Cheryl and Jeff were the only two people out of 37 that arranged to do something in Cove. But listen, when you've got great bars like that as well, like Kelly's on your doorstep, right as we got off the bus almost, why wouldn't you sit and just have a pint? We got a beautiful day as well. Second year in a row, actually, there's been no rain.
Which is not something we can promise for every whiskey bus, certainly not the one in March.
No, I was going to say definitely not March. March in the west of Ireland, maybe a different story. But
I'll do a little video on that bag because I've had a couple of questions about it, and I've directed people on where they can buy one. But it is the best bag I've ever owned. Whiskey aside, it's got more pockets and user-friendly attachments than I've ever seen on a bag. And the fact that you can have a refrigerated style front to maintain the temperature of your important whiskey and then pour it out of a spout is just the icing on the cake. So I'll do a little video on the use of the bag and where you can get it during the week.
I mean, you had your laptop in there, you had everything you would have needed for an overnight stay in there as well. And then imagine an office, imagine rolling into an office with a backpack like that full of whiskey. No one would be any the wiser.
No. And I've walked around Cork many times with it since, and now I haven't had the whiskey in it, but that'll be the next move. That'll be the pro move. Now,
Barry, I know I kind of sat the Irish malts side of this day out just to kind of prepare for the boat to make sure all the food was okay, and the surprise cake that we had for Autumn and Jeff, who celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary. But again, just talking about kind of supporting local and sort of smaller businesses besides the big brands, the kind of top brands that we talk about, the impact again that we had on Irish malts, I think, was pretty significant. There were certainly a few bottles lighter by the end of that afternoon.
That was a great day. The chance to visit a bonded warehouse, the chance to see a retail operation which has grown astronomically in the past 5 years, from a conversation I remember having 6 years ago with John O'Donovan, the founder, and he said, I'm thinking of starting this website. And now you walk in and he's got massive blending tanks, he's got forklifts driving around, he's got 20 staff packing bottles, he's got warehouse full of casks. It's unbelievable what he's built there, and the chance to see it firsthand for our whiskey bus guests who were extended a 30% discount, let's not forget, to be able to walk around the shelves like a shopping cart dash, they're all looking for available space to create their piles. Hey, where can I put my bottles? And it was, every available space was just these bundles of bottles that people were buying. I mean, hundreds of bottles were purchased in that one morning. And it was fantastic.
Which is amazing. And to say that discount, which fair play to John and team, was very generous. To say that was utilised is probably the understatement of the year. For sure. And then that evening as well, we changed our mode of transport from bus to boat, and we boarded a wonderful cruise. This was one of the best nights, I think, for me. One, because it kind of marked a little moment for me, just on a personal level. And then second of all, the crack was mighty. One, the personal level was, it was my first whiskey tasting, non-Bushmills whiskey tasting, which, Barry, I was kind of like, my word, this is a big deal. I've spent the past 10 odd years dedicated to one brand, and now I'm suddenly talking about hundreds of brands. So it was a nice little moment for me. And then second of all, the crack was mighty. We were joined by Paul, I don't know if he's still there, a good friend of ours in Cork, Roisin Barry, and other Laurie from Cork Whiskey Fest. It was just brilliant crack. We drank whiskey, we sang songs, we drank the bar dry of Guinness. We'll not dwell on that one. Just the food was amazing, the crack was amazing, and it was definitely one of my favorite nights for sure.
Great night. To the point where it has been requested for our private whiskey buses that we're doing, Like they want this.
They do, yeah. It was quite funny because it's one of the few non-direct distillery related experiences that we did. But I think it's a breath of fresh air. It's nice to do that and just kind of just enjoy a more informal setting, I think is the best way to put it, and we certainly did it. Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was such a good night. And the crack was
Kevin,
continued well into the wee hours in the
well,
Shelburne.
I remember as we were getting through that whiskey bus week, where we'd have a good experience somewhere, or we'd meet somebody from the whiskey industry along the way, and one or more of us would say, "Do you want to join us in the boat? Do you want to join us in the boat?" And by the time the boat rolled around, we were wondering if we'd be able to fit everyone on. We had the two ladies from Irish Malls. We had Conor Ryan from Pierce Lyons. We had Cork Whiskey Fest Laurie and his wife were there as well, and Paul and Dan and Aaron Grant and on and on. We just had this lot, and Tom from the Shelburne. People just started joining the boat, but it was great crack. It was just great crack.
We were like, do we have enough whiskey? Do we have enough food to feed these people? We keep inviting people. The guest list is extending, but we made it work. It was great crack. Definitely. I think anytime we visit Cork, that has to be included in the itinerary. There's just no movement on that one for sure.
And we do have this as an experience on its own too. So if you want to do this, if you're coming to Cork with a group or a family or you have a society, we have this model of an experience can be done anytime. Whether you want it to be Lauren on the Lee again or Barry on a boat, it can be organised in Cork. So let us know. That's available on irishwhiskeyexperiences.com as well. What else have we got, Lauren, as a highlight from that week?
The highlight, I think this was a highlight for many, which goes without saying, was Clonakilty, yes, but specifically the barley fields at Gallyhead. I feel like I had an outer body experience that day. I'm not even joking. I did not want to leave that barley field. If you had have left me there on a blanket with a whiskey in hand to just listen to the waves hit the cliffs, hit the shore, and just be at peace there, I would have stayed there forever. It was just amazing. The weather was amazing. We were in the barley field the day it was being harvested. I have to share that video actually in the group of the combine harvester.
Yeah.
A few hours after. Amazing. We had a bite of lunch in the field. We tasted what will be was the world's first single pot still in a year's time, produced from the Goldthorpe heritage
first ever
barley.
Distilled, single pot still made from a heritage grain, Goldthorpe. Yeah, it was growing in the field.
Amazing. It was
a great day. Amazing day.
An amazing day. And to have Michael Scully there, founder, of course, the Scully family, farmed on the Gallyhead for 9 generations, and had distiller Oisin there as well. Of course, Ewan had a visitor experience there too. Just to have them there, speak so passionately about their vision and what they're doing. And they're just so passionate about kind of having that, the grain to glass sort of model for their distillery, and the fact that they're growing the majority of all their own barley. It was just bliss. Absolute bliss. It was phenomenal.
Transcendent.
Absolutely.
The bus, for those who weren't on the bus, you may have heard of the size or witnessed the size of Irish roads. Add in a long wheelbase 52-seater bus that is not designed for these roads, and you should have seen. I mean, there were corners that I would have been nervous taking a horse and cart around. And Michael Scully, the founder, was sitting in the sitting in the shotgun seat beside the driver, Nigel, and he kept saying to Nigel, "You'll be grand, you'll be grand." I've taken 20-foot containers around here. And Nigel turned to him and he said, "You can scratch a container."
And I think Nigel also came out with as well, "This bus doesn't bend."
That's right. That's right.
God love him. I mean, fair play to Nigel. Honestly, not so much. It was more so the roads to the warehouse. The Barleyfield roads were tight. Yes, of course, they were very, very winding, very narrow, sort of typical countryside Irish roads. But the warehouse was another level. I mean, you would honestly struggle to get a large car around some of those corners. Fair play to him. we might not do that again in a hurry to the warehouse.
No, I don't think so. I think helicopters and winches will be the next way of getting there, not a 52-seater bus.
Absolutely. And individually pick everyone up from the barley fields and drop them off into the warehouse via helicopter is the only solution to that.
And then like that was our second last day, and you could kind of feel that there was a kind of a sadness that we were coming to the end of it. I mean, it's a jam-packed week. Like we shouldn't be under any illusion. If you're going to join the whiskey bus, we're going to squeeze a lot in. Now, you're not obliged to do everything, but for those who do, there's a lot. Like it's morning to night, but there's a reason for that. We've a lot to show you, and we want to squeeze as much in as is humanly possible. But even though people were, there was 6 days in, there were some scars from battle. Especially from the old late nights in the Shelburne and what have you. But there was some powder kept dry for the last day.
There was. I think that's a great point as well about how much there is to see. Our problem when we're arranging other experiences, but mainly the whiskey bus, is what not to do as opposed to what to do. You have so much choice, especially now the way the industry has been headed the past sort of 5-6 years. You have so much choice, and you don't want to let anyone down. You're trying to include everyone as best as possible. So it's tough going at times, but the rewards are worth it. You reap the rewards of the experiences. So yeah, the last day, I don't know even where to begin, how to describe this last day with the Masters at Midleton. It was one of those days where you just are speechless at the scale of the distillery, the passion of the people, just what they have going on there, and the plans for the future are actually terrifying. They're now sitting at 2 million barrels, 2 million casks of whiskey aging there, is just insane. And the sites we saw, the places we were taken, no one gets to see that. Some of the areas we were, like 29A, Warehouse A2, was some of the oldest stock, oldest barrels in Midleton. You just don't get that. Most visitors don't know they even exist, those areas. It was just an unbelievable day. And again, another one of those people who can captivate a room. You could have heard a pin drop was with Ger Buckley. I can't describe him. I really can't. Just the way he speaks, the passion. And as soon as he said, I don't know what it is about Coopers. They make me emotional. I think it's because they have such strong family ties, such generational ties to their art, their craft. And as soon as Ger said, "I'll never be as good as my father," I was like, I'm going to cry. And then he spoke with more passion than most people would ever speak with in their lives about their craft. It was just
amazing.
Lost for words.
It was the whiskey bus is raising some interesting questions and challenges for us now, where we've got a good hefty percentage of repeat business, which is coming back. So some of you we're delighted to see you're coming back. Some of you have been on every whiskey bus, and you're going to be on the next one, and that's amazing. And as long as the whiskey industry keeps growing, we will have plenty of experiences, because we want to do things where maybe you're not repeating. But then we also have to figure out how to ensure that people who come for the first time still get to see the things that they haven't seen before as well. So it's really, this is a fun thing for us to try and figure out. Like it's a giant game of chess that you're kind of moving. Well, not so much chess as kind of how do you fit certain shapes into certain holes to figure out how to have these win-win-win scenarios for everybody. Because one of the challenges with rocking into a distillery, even the size of Midleton, with a bus of 40 people, is that the people who are employed to make whiskey have to stop doing that day, and they have to, so that they can point at a thing. They can point at the still they're supposed to be working at instead of working at it. And I think that's we have to figure out that balance too, where there's no way we're going to be able to do a whiskey bus every month to Midleton or a whiskey bus every month to Bushmills. But there's enough out there in Ireland right now, which I'm confident about, that for varied, amazing experiences. I think we're only scratching the surface, but good problems for us to have anyway, I think.
Absolutely. And I think as well,
Oh, did we lose Lauren there, did we? This is the nightly, the once a week drop off point. She'll jump back on. The Saturday then leaving Cork, going back to Dublin Airport, always the sad one. Early start to get up to Dublin Airport. And then a good few people actually stayed on, which was amazing, to spend more time in Ireland. And in fact, there are still people in Ireland right now from the whiskey bus. And I get messages every day from somebody in the whiskey industry who said, one of your whiskey bussers is here with us today. Or I met one of the people who is on your next whiskey bus. But that's great to see as well. And long may that continue.
I didn't want to miss it. My laptop's had enough for tonight, so hopefully you can still hear me okay. I didn't want to miss it.
Your laptop died, did it?
It did, yeah. I don't know what happened there, but I'm back.
One of these days we will get this to work.
One of these days will work, but I'm here. It's all good. I didn't want to bit about Whiskey Bus 3.
Well, we kind of got to the end there, just talking about the joy of getting messages to, even like in the last week, getting messages from people in the industry saying, one of your whiskey bussers is with us today. One of your whiskey bussers rocked in to say hi, or I recognized one of your whiskey bussers from the pictures online, and I went over and I said hi to them, which was amazing. That's how small Ireland is too.
It's so nice. And I think Bob was saying, Bob was the first person who came to my mind. He went to Belfast after.
Yeah.
And he was in with Ray and Jim at the Friend at Hand. He managed to find a few ambassadors. I think there was a Whiskey and Wings event on at the Dirty Onion. And they recognized him, as you said, Barry, from photographs, and from being vocal and being
amazing
as well. And I think it's testament to the Irish whiskey community as well, that it is still very small, and we're all very supportive and we all know each other. So it's nice in that regard.
I'm all the time trying to think of, with the likes of the Shebeen or Stories and Sips or Irish Whiskey Experiences, I'm all the time trying to understand what's the balance between all the things, like new whiskey releases. Do you talk about new whiskey releases every night? Do you do nosing and tastings? You're like, oh, this is what I'm getting from the glass. And the thing that you could do all of those things. But the thing that keeps me excited, and I get the sense it's the same with you, is there's this through line throughout all of these things, which is the crack around whiskey. Because I'm not a whiskey expert, and there are far superior noses and palates out there that will identify compounds and esters and flavors in whiskey than I will. But there's no one will have more crack than me when it comes to when you get me in the room with the right people and a few drinks start flowing and everyone's having the crack, no better time will we all have. And that's, I think, to me, that's more important than, maybe I'm alone in that, but that's what gets me going with it all.
I completely agree, because I always think, and I was told this when I was starting out in my whiskey journey, when I was a tour guide and then subsequently became an ambassador. I will never forget a phrase that someone told me, and it was, people will remember you and you as a person more than what you told them. And I think that is just, it's so true. You might not remember every single detail from a tasting, from a training, from an experience with a blender or a cooper, but you'll remember how they were with you. And that has resonated with me, and it's something I still take forward. I know, Barry, you say you're not an expert. You definitely are, but I've always said, I don't claim to know everything about whiskey. I think if you got to that stage, you should probably call it a day. There's always something to learn. But I will be one of the most passionate people about this industry, because what's not to love about it? What's not to love about the whiskey, the people, the crack? Yeah, it's just amazing.
We are planning some other experiences. There's the coming soon section on our website is about, it won't be long before one of those coming soons is no longer a coming soon and is going live. But there have been some suggestions in the past, and we've paid attention to them, and requests for shorter experiences and shorter trips, and perhaps something that could involve those on both sides of the Atlantic if they want to participate. So we do, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to talk about smaller experiences that also involve a bus that might be 2 or 3 days instead of 7. And we'll have those throughout the year as well. And in fact, probably more of them than we will even have whiskey buses if all goes to plan, and then full whiskey buses, full 7 days. But we're just scratching the surface on that one. But Lauren's been busy pulling out the stops of a crack-filled potential weekend in a certain place.
Certain place I'm very familiar with. Just we'll leave it there.
We'll leave it there. We'll say no more and no less. The Shebeen next week is the big one, halfway to St. Patrick's Day. I'm looking forward to being the guest and not the host. I'm going to line up more whiskies than I've ever lined up because I don't have to host anything. I don't have to press the buttons.
You'll have to get a few tins of Beamish in as well and enjoy a few Beamish.
The fridge is full of them. I always have the fridge stocked with Beamish.
Fantastic. I don't think there's anywhere, well, there's certainly not anywhere close to me anyway in the north that you can get them in tins. So I'll have to stick to Guinness, unfortunately. I'm still in not Cork, you see, so there's only certain measures you can take, you know.
We're going to set, like, we want to hero St. Patrick's Day. We want to hero Whiskey Bus 3. We do want to fill the last few seats on that bus. I have no doubt we will over the next between now and that time. But I'm also, I will say, if you are at all on the fence, Whiskey Bus 3 will be cracked like we've not had in a different way, in a different set of places with different characters, and there will be some very Irish experiences, which will be just, we'll go through them all next week. But in any case, it's a chance for you to learn more about what we're doing at Whiskey Bus 3. We're doing all these things, again, back to that line earlier, it's about the crack. Like, we have so much fun hanging out with everyone, and whiskey is just the vehicle that brings us all together. So, and you thought the Whiskey Bus was the vehicle. It's the whiskey itself is the vehicle that brings us all together. So we're going to talk about more things like that and more crack. And of course, whatever whiskies are released between now and next week, we'll talk about them as well. What else do we have to talk about in this week's Shebeen?
I think we've covered most of it. You covered about the Whiskey Bus there. As we said at the very beginning, there's very, very limited numbers of seats left. So if you're thinking about pulling the trigger, it would really need to be pretty soon.
IrishWhiskeyExperiences.com is where you go for to reserve your place. I'm working on a prototype box at the moment for whiskey samples for our Stories and Sips Whiskey Club. They're being designed at the moment, and I'm very excited about them because they're this really clever little case that's going to fit snugly. The bottles, where's the bottle? I have a sample of the bottle here somewhere. Not easy to reach, I don't. But that's an interesting development that's coming in Stories and Sips as well. And a few more bits and pieces for now, but I'm off to sample some whiskies on Tuesday. I'll video it along the way. I'm doing a thing at the moment online as well on Instagram and YouTube. I'll throw it on Facebook where I started it today. There's been lots of questions being asked about Irish whiskey. There's lots of myths out there. And I have tapped into a great resource that has given me access to the most asked questions about Irish whiskey in Google. So I'm taking that list and I'm going to work through it, and I'm going to answer all the questions in short little 60-second videos, and I'm going to do at least one a day. So day one was today, and the question was, is Irish whiskey gluten-free? So if you want to watch those videos, they're on my Instagram, Irish Whiskey Barry, or they're on the Stories and Sips YouTube channel as well that you're watching right here. But when this is finished, you can go click on the channel and you'll see the shorts, the 60-second shorts. If you've got any questions about Irish whiskey that you want answered, just shoot them over to me, put them in the Facebook community, tag me, and I'll do a video to answer them. And I'm going to try and do this so that we can have a resource of hopefully accurate information about Irish whiskey that we can point to. If anyone says, what ingredients are in Irish whiskey? You can say, there's a video for that. Or, for example, tomorrow's video is a great question that is actually asked a lot in Google, which is Irish whiskey Scotch? I know, but it's a question, so we're answering it. Yeah. And we want to make sure that when people ask that question, we've got an honest answer for it.
That's one I used to get quite a lot as well. And I think it's just because Scotch became such a blanket term for whiskey in films and and just various other resources that were accessible to people. So I kind of did get that reputation for just being the name for all whiskey. So that's a good one.
One last point there before we sign off. Greg says Cork Whisky Fest follows Whisky Bus 3. We're going to do a lot more to talk about that because Laurie is about to announce some of the events surrounding it. We do have discounted hotel rates. I'm not sure if we've sent. I don't think we've sent those out yet, but we'll probably send those out shortly.
We will. So it's I think it's €189 per night for an executive room in the Metropole. But you do have to book it directly with them. You'll have to ring the hotel and just quote that you're a part of Cork Whisky Fest, and you'll avail of that discount.
We'll send out those details this week or next. And in the meantime, I think Sinead, I think we've done it. We've virtually visited Killarney. It makes me want to visit now personally, and I keep promising to darken the doorstep of poor Morris down there. So I'll have to darken it ASAP and pop in and see the new stills going in the Killarney Brewing and Distilling as well. That's it. Good job. We did it.
Next week will be a big one. Might be 3 hours Shebeen. Who knows?
Listen, get the push-ups in beforehand. Get exercise. Do your stretches, and you'll be grand.
We will. We'll have good crack as we always do.
Folks, thanks for joining us. One last favour we'll ask of you before you go. The video you're watching has a like button under it. If you haven't clicked the like button, would you do it for us? If you know of anybody in the whiskey or anyone in your life who would benefit from hanging out with incredibly fun people who enjoy whiskey too, would you let them know about us and tell them what we do and direct them to our YouTube channel or our Facebook community or our websites or our social media channels? We would like more people to know about us because, we have things to say and we have whiskey to drink and we have people to introduce you all to. So please spread the word and continue spreading that gospel. And we will see you next week. And Kristen, I will bring the spud to next week's Shebeen and introduce the spud for all to see there as well and tell the story of that spud. So until next week, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lauren. And to Killarney and all its great people, we say Sláinte.
Sláinte, everybody. Good night.